Welcome to this week's edition of In the Clubhouse with EMD. I'm Andy Kirikides, joined by my wonderful co-host, Keith Glasser. Keith, how we doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. All right. Today's short. Going to take 10, 12, maybe 15 minutes. We're going to talk about camps, showcases, and clinics and kind of walk through what differentiates some of them and go into some detail about that particular topic. So, Coach Glass, want to kick us off?
Yes. Thought this would be a proper one to kind of put out there here in the next couple of weeks, because you're going to have a handful of showcases and maybe some camps that are being had in the January and February months. You know, I think the couple things to think about are, if it's a showcase, you know, are you ready to showcase? You know, if you're an arm, are you ready to go throw in a showcase setting? You know, what does that look like? Where, you know, depending on where you are geographically, you know, if you're a Northeast kid and you're not necessarily throwing a lot of meaningful games until April, you know, if you're not ramped up to go throw a bullpen at full strength, like it might not be the best idea to go to. But the other is understanding what the rules surrounding the recruiting and the recruiting calendar and what coaches are at other levels are doing as well. You know, in January and February, when you see some of these showcases coming out, you know, we're still in a quiet period from a Division I standpoint, so that no Division I coaches can be there. You know, and Division II and III, you know, they're not necessarily in a quiet period because they don't have one, but, you know, depending on where they are, you know, they might have kids on campus where they're practicing and they're getting ready to fire up a season. You know, they're not taking a weekend to go watch a game or a showcase, you know, in Florida, let's say, if they're in the New England or the Mid-Atlantic or the Northeast or, you know, Michigan area, the Midwest, if you will. You know, because they're going to save that money to go watch games in the summer. You know, so it's worth noting, depending on where you are in the country geographically, you know, who's going to be there. You know, is it going to be worth is it going to be the bang for your buck that you're looking for from a recruiting standpoint? So, you know, I think the readiness, especially this early in the year, when the calendar flips over here in a couple weeks, and understanding what the recruiting rules are. You know, and we'll kind of dive into the camp showcases and stuff like that here in a second. But, you know, I think first and foremost is are you ready to showcase, and who's going to be there? Because I know for a fact that, you know, not a lot of guys are going to end up showing up to a random showcase in January to watch you play. And there's not going to be any Division I's and a very few select Division IIs and IIIs. You know, there might be some JUCOs and stuff like that, but, you know, maybe some NAIAs, you know, I don't necessarily know, because I never recruited those events, you know, that early in the year, because I was, you know, saving my money from a recruiting standpoint for the summer or had my team on campus and had to be at practice.
Yep. Huge piece of the puzzle. Make sure you're ready to go. And I think the timing piece isn't just about the off season, but you want to make sure that, like, if you're a 26 or a 27, if you're going to go pay to go showcase somewhere, you need to be able to put a really good foot forward. And whether that's an on-campus camp or a clinic, whatever it might be, the timing of when you go and choose to showcase yourself is important. And it's also, you don't want to waste money at these things when you're not ready to go showcase and you're not really a recruitable player yet. And, you know, everybody's timeline's different, and we can't harp that enough. On-campus camps, we're big fans. I think that if you do it in a targeted fashion and you're smart about where you go and you have the knowledge and the information needed to make some good decisions, this is where you're going to get a lot of really good bang for your buck. Going to targeted camps where you know that you have a chance to potentially be recruited at that school. It's an academic fit. Most of these schools, specifically in the summer, they're going to be loaded with other schools that are in the same ilk academically, and you're going to have a chance to showcase yourself in more than just the school that you go to visit. I think another huge benefit is that there's an emphasis put on gameplay. There's going to be some actual coaching that goes on, and you're going to get interaction with those coaches. And I know this is a big part of it for you, is that it's a built-in college visit. So I'm a huge fan of the on-campus camps. I think it just really comes down to you just got to make some good decisions in terms of where you're going, and making sure that that school is both a fit athletically and academically.
Yeah, I mean, the timing piece around it, the college camp I love for all of those reasons, and I think the other is to just mention that if you're a 26 or 7, 26s are probably if you're a guy who's really interested in that program and you have someone telling you that you're probably going to fit there, like, yeah, man, like it's probably not a bad idea to head to it. But at the same time, it's they're going to get out and see you play in the spring and the summer, and into the fall. So 27s, like I don't know if it's really worth it, to be honest with you, unless you're a guy who's going to be playing at the the super high levels, and you're trying to get in front of those coaches right now, and someone's told you like, hey, I think you can go play at Arkansas. Like, sure, head to their camp if they're having one, and figure that out. But you're not really going to be recruited for another 2 years. So the time frame, depending on what your grad class looks like, and the timing around where you are, from a personal standpoint and a baseball standpoint, it is still relevant here too. I love the college camp, but you want to take into account all factors when you're deciding whether or not to go to these types of things. And you should take into account money and travel and expenses and things like that, because they'll add up pretty quickly. So especially during the front part of the year where you're not necessarily playing a whole lot of baseball until April, May, June, July, August, September. Like, you might want to save your money and spend it in the summer, where you're kind of guaranteeing yourself a lot more eyes on, if you will, than maybe going to a 1-day camp where you have one staff that you're going to work with and probably not get a whole hell of a lot of interaction with over the course of 1 day, because there might be 40 kids there. They can't interact with everybody. So it's, you want to weigh all of those things when you're thinking about that as well.
Very true. There's a couple other different, like, prominent showcase opportunities for kids. One of it is going to be like the private showcase, where coaches don't get paid to attend, right? So like a PBR workout or a perfect game workout. They're going to take metrics. You're going to go through pro style workouts. Sometimes there's a game component to it, but coaches they're not paid to be there. There's no guarantee that any coaches are actually going to show up. The flip side of that is going to be kind of I guess we call it a private showcase. How do you like to term that?
Like the PBRs and the
the other, like if you're like Head First or Showball or Best in the US showcases, where there's going to be these specific coaches at that particular camp.
I would say, like, I say that I differentiate it with showcases are more the perfect games, the PBRs, where college coaches cannot work it, nor can they talk to you. They can talk to you after the event when you've been released, but that doesn't necessarily happen a lot. Not to say it doesn't, but by and large, it's not happening all the time. And then the private camps, I like to call them, because there's more of a instructional, per se, aspect of those camps. There's not really a lot of instruction at a straight up showcase. Like, you're there to showcase yourself and get some gameplay and do that stuff. The private camps are a little bit more geared towards having college coaches that are paid to be there, that you can interact with, that are going to do some instruction, and they'll be in the dugout. You'll get gameplay and a showcase and all that stuff. So, that's kind of how I differentiate it, where the showcases, no one can talk to you. They're not paid to be there. They're there at their own free will. The showcase, or the private camp, excuse me, like, they're being paid. Not to say they're not there at their own free will, but they're being paid to be there to work with you and do those things. So, those ones obviously tend to be a little bit more expensive, but that's because the college coaches are being paid for their time for being there.
Yeah, great description of the two. I think it's important just to understand what you're getting out of those, right? Like, if you're going the showcase route, you got to understand it's a showcase. and there's no guarantee that any coaches are going to be there. It's more of a metrics based event. Yeah, can you get some traction out of them? Sure, absolutely. Like you can get some traction there. I think the private camps that you're referencing, Best in the Showcase, Best in the US Showcase does a really good job. If you're academic head first, Show Paul are two prominent ones, and there's other ones that are out there. But what you need to look at with those particular type of events is pay attention to what coaches are going to be there, and are those schools a fit for you academically and athletically? Because if you're not a very good student and you're going to go to show ball and you've got a 2.7 GPA, like they'll probably take your money to come to camp, but there's probably not many schools that are going to even be able to get you in at that particular showcase. If you're looking at Best in the US, they have camps at all different parts of the country, and the coaching staffs are going to be different. So if you're looking to go to school in the Mid Atlantic, you probably want to take a look at an event that they have in the Mid Atlantic, where most of the schools that are going to be there are going to be schools that are in the Mid Atlantic region. So do your homework before you spend the money. Make sure that you're going to be in front of the type of coaches that you want to be in front of, and that you're not just going to a showcase just to go to a showcase. Because at the end of the day, they do cost money, and you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in front of coaches that you're actually interested in playing in front of.
Struggled unmuting myself. Yeah, I agree. I think understanding weighing everything that goes into it, just like the college camps. What is the cost? What is the travel? What are the expenses? Those types of things, and understanding, and I've said this to a lot of people, like if you're not a high-end academic kid, like, the head first and the show balls aren't probably for you from the academic camps, because they're mainly high-end academic schools that are there that are recruiting. So it's not worth the money to go to them if none or only 5% of the coaches that are there can actually recruit you. You'd be better served spending your money elsewhere and getting in front of a bunch of coaches that can actually recruit you of schools that you can academically get into. And that's just the reality. Like that's something that you should factor in. You shouldn't feel as though that's something that you need to do in order to get seen, because sure, you're going to get seen, but if you can't get into school academically, you might as well have just lit your money on fire on your front lawn, because it's not getting you anywhere.
Yep. The other type of opportunity that I think is probably worth touching on before we shut this one down is the invite stuff. Now, I use the word invite in a very formal fashion here, because you will receive in emails that tell you that you're invited, which is a natural outreach for a lot of these showcases. But there are invite only events, and you've got New York, you've got the PBR state games, which are really valuable. You've got the PBR futures games, which you're going to have to qualify for and get selected. You've got junior national. You've got East Coast Pro. Like if you get invited to any of those, just go. Like that's a legitimate opportunity for you to go and get evaluated. Those events are heavily covered. The PBR state games is something that most coaches who recruit a particular state, they're going to be at that event. So those are a good investment if you ultimately get picked to play in one of those events. And certainly recommend that you take advantage of that opportunity, because coaches do ultimately want to see guys in game settings, and those type of events offer the opportunity for coaches to evaluate you in that game setting versus the more like kind of traditional workout setting. So take advantage of that. One other thing I want to add about the private camps: make sure you look at the format. Make sure you know exactly what you're getting out of them. A gameplay component, I think, is really important to make sure that you're paying for some sort of an actual gameplay. Most of them are going to offer it, but make sure that if you're going to pay $600, $700, $1,000, make sure you're not just going there to run the 60 and throw across the infield and take batting practice on the field. Make sure you're going to actually play in a game. I think that's a really important thing, especially when you start getting into the summer. you got to be actually playing a baseball game in order to really get traction with coaches.
Yeah, and that gameplay could be anything, right? Like it's generally speaking, it's not going to be like a 9 inning game, but you want to be able to get live at bats off a live pitcher, and you want to be able to throw live pitches to hitters to get guys out. So you want to make sure you know what that format looks like. And not only is that just for the next couple months, but this holds true into the summer. So we kind of started talking about January and February because you're going to start seeing them pop up, but you'll start getting these camps and invites and all these things that are going to roll through May, June, July, August, September. You want to make sure that you do your due diligence on what they offer, what they look like, who's going to be there, how much does it cost, what are the expenses, all of those things, because all of those things need to factor in with what you're doing from a recruiting standpoint, because you don't need to spend a plethora of money doing this stuff. If you can educate yourself and go about it the right way and do some targeted events and get in front of the people that you want to be in front of, and really be able to hone in on the schools that are recruiting you that you want to be recruited by, you can save yourself a lot of money and time, energy, and effort and anxiety with knowing where to go and saving money that way too.
Anything else you would like to add, Coach?
No.
All right. I think that's it for camps, showcases, and the like. Be smart about where you go, understand where you're getting, and make sure that you're ready to rock and roll when it's time to showcase yourself. Until next week, thank you everybody for listening. Talk to you soon. Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.